Hey everybody, this is Meredith Miller with Inner Integration. Today, the topic I have for you is the narcissist smirk. Why do they do that? So I want to tell you a little bit about some warning signs, some typical situations and circumstances in which you will see a narcissist, psychopath, sociopath, other abuser, manipulator smirk. And then I want to give you a little brief deception training so that you can kind of start to recognize this and notice when this is going on. Now, I'm going to also explain to you what the main emotions are behind the smirk, because that is very important to understand. I'm also going to make a disclaimer on why not every smirk means it's something evil or someone evil or an abusive person. I'm going to tell you about a situation, and of course there could be many more, in which you might have a smirk on your face, and I wouldn't blame you. So what does that smirk mean? Well, it's a combination of two emotions, which is happiness or delight, which is the smile, right? And then contempt. And contempt is the tightening of the lips on one side of the face only. Something like that. Now, what's happening is these are called micro expressions. Micro expressions means that it happens in a flash. You see this involuntary muscle spasm happen on a person's face. It could be as short as 1/25th of a second, which is extremely fast. So it's through these facial expressions that people reveal the emotions that we're actually feeling. This is part of why we say the body doesn't lie. It's part of learning how to read body language to see if a person is really in alignment with what they're saying and what they're actually feeling, what you're seeing through their expressions. Now, these micro expressions are universal around the world. They discovered there are 7 universal micro expressions. This is mostly coming from the work of Dr. Paul Ekman, E-K-M-A-N, and his institute. If you've seen the Netflix series Lie to Me, that was loosely based on him. Okay, his work has been used by the CIA, the FBI, the Scotland Yard, maybe other intel agencies. Leakage is the term they use to describe when your conscious or subconscious repression of that emotion reveals in your face. So maybe you're having a conversation with somebody and you feel an emotion, but you purposely stop yourself from showing that emotion, expressing that in any kind of way. You're trying to maintain neutrality. The thing is, your face could betray you. Your face could actually reveal that. It could also happen subconsciously. So the conscious form of leakage is when you're purposely hiding your emotions from other people. That could be used to deceive people, but that could also be used to protect yourself in that whole respond versus react and maintaining emotional neutrality so that you don't give narcissistic supply to an abuser. The subconscious form of that is when you're hiding your emotions from yourself. You're not even aware of them, but your face reveals them. So as I said, the smirk is a combination of happiness and contempt, and it's seen in that sideways smile on one side only. So what does contempt mean, and how does this relate to an abuser? So according to the dictionary, the definition of contempt is the act of despising or a lack of respect and reverence. It's willful disobedience or open disrespect. This can also come from a terminology they use in law, which is something like contempt of the court. When someone is being outright disrespectful in the courtroom, they'll actually use that terminology. It also means feeling that someone or something is not worthy of respect or approval. It is disapproval and disgust, that combination. And it can also be used to indicate an extreme lack of respect or an intense dislike. So what I found is that my dog will make this expression a lot. Before I took Dr. Paul Ekman's course a couple years ago. Before I understood all of that, and she was younger, I would notice, like, if I was eating something and I didn't give it to her, or if I didn't keep throwing the ball when she wanted me to throw the ball, or if I didn't do what it was that she wanted, she would make this face that I called the bullshit face. And like one of her lips would come up like this, and she would just stare at me. I'm gonna see if I can put a photo on here so you could see that. So here's Venus modeling the micro expression for contempt. You can see how on the right side of the screen, that side of her lip is curled up. So I don't remember what was going on. This was back in Portland. I think maybe she wanted food or something and I didn't give it to her. And then here's another look. and another look of contempt. This was in Mexico. I think she probably wanted to go home. We were at a cafe. And then she had what I would call the double bullshit face, which is like she was just utterly annoyed. And that's when like both of the lips come up like that. This is what disgust looks like. So this is when both sides, both lips are curled up, like you smelled something weird or bad. And so she's making the face of disgust. This is what I call level 2 bullshit face. And here we have the frontal view. And again. So this face she made, we went to a Friendsgiving a few years ago, and you know, there was like, I don't know, 25 people there, and everybody was eating. And she went around person to person to see who she could charm into getting some food. And I don't think she got any food. And by the time she came back around toward where I was, the kid next to me goes, "Hey, little girl, where did your lips go?" And she was just making utter disgust face that she didn't get any food. So it doesn't always mean it's someone evil. It could mean you didn't get what you want and you're upset. Now, I've also noticed contempt on the faces of victims and survivors. So, you know, I used to do Skype sessions one-on-one with people, and sometimes when people are in the later stages of healing, you'll notice that contempt come across their face. You know, they're talking about the abuser and you'll see that come across their face. I've caught myself doing that when I was thinking about things like that. Like just having the thought about it could cause you to express one of these emotions. So, you know, having contempt towards someone who violated you doesn't make you evil. You might even wear a smirk on your face, which is that combination of contempt plus happiness. Let's say that you find out that karma paid a visit to your ex-abuser. I wouldn't blame you if you had a little bit of a smirk going on, because damn, it feels good to know that there is karma and there is justice for what they did to you. Now, that wasn't you out there actively seeking revenge or anything like that. That was you getting a piece of news, and you know, I wouldn't blame you for being a little bit happy about that. So Robert Solomon identified these 3 emotions, including contempt, and I want to explain these to you because I thought this was fascinating, especially looking at this in terms of the victim, the survivor in recovery. So he says that resentment is anger directed towards a higher status individual. So this is you in stage 1 of the recovery, when you're still a victim, when you're still disempowered, whether you're still with the abuser or you left the abuser, but you still have all that resentment because you're still putting yourself below them. Like you're still seeing them as someone superior who had power over you because you're still feeling like a victim. That's resentment, most indicative of stage 1. Now this might come up down the road as well. Then anger, he said, is directed towards someone of an equal status as you. So what you'll notice is like towards the end of stage 1, as you're empowering yourself, as you get into stage 2, the anger comes up. And that's actually a good thing. And I'm going to put up in one of these corners the link to the video that I did on the 2 different kinds of anger, how you're going through that, and gives you some ideas on anger processing as well to check that out. So that's more like as you're becoming empowered, now you feel like you're more equal. You don't feel like the abuser's up here and you're down here anymore. That's when you notice that anger more. And then contempt, Solomon says, is anger directed towards someone of a lower status than you. So this explains why abusers have this contempt and disdain for their victims. They not only have contempt for their victims, they have contempt for victims in general. So why? Because they have that superiority complex. Right? That's part of the personality disorder. They see themselves above everyone else. They see everyone below them. So they feel entitled to take advantage and prey upon the weakness of those people and the inferiority of those people. They feel that it is of their entitlement because they're superior. I thought that was fascinating. Psychologists, especially couples, people who do couples therapy, psychologists will talk about seeing contempt on the face of the couple, and they say that is the kiss of death for that relationship or marriage. They say they can predict without a doubt that couple's going to get divorced or break up when they see contempt on the face of either or both people in that couple. So when does the narcissist smirk? When, or the psychopath, the sociopath, the abuser in general, when will you see that smirk on their face? I'm going to give you 8 different examples here. Surely there's more. Feel free to add them in the comments as you're starting to think back or having flashbacks of times when you saw that on their face. So the very first one is when they think they're getting away with it. That's when they're deceiving you and they're getting satisfaction from that con, from that deception. Number 2 is when they extract narcissistic supply of any form. It could be positive, it could be negative. You'll see that across their face. It's also part of getting away with it, but it's specifically about getting that narcissistic supply. Number 3 is when they see your pain. That could be pain that they inflicted on you, or it could just be your pain in the world. Like maybe you come home and you had a really bad day or something really awful happened to you, and you notice that as you're telling them this story about what happened, they have a freaking smirk on their face. Or maybe you tell them a story about something that happened to you in the past, like a story of abuse, a story of some difficult relationship you had, and you notice them doing that. That's a really bad sign. That's a sign of Schadenfreude. I don't pronounce that right, probably. I don't speak German. That is an unbelievable German word that means like getting pleasure out of someone's suffering. And that is exactly, it's sadism. And that's exactly what they do. The more sadistic ones will do that more than others, but you'll notice across the board, they do that. Even the ones who aren't like the most evil kind of abusers, it's like they just get some kind of delight in knowing that you are or were in pain. Number 4 is when you don't give them something that they want and you are upset about it. So if you just set the boundary and you were neutral and didn't give them what they want, that's probably not going to give them a lot of delight. But if they didn't get what they wanted from you as they were trying to bulldoze your boundaries and see how far they could push you, if you got upset, which again is about the narcissistic supply, that's going to create a smirk on their face. Number 5 is when they reject your opinions, thoughts, feelings, etc. because you don't agree with them. You might notice that smirk come across their face. And again, this could be really subtle and it could be a flash. It could be like 1/25 of a second, which is really, really fast and hard to notice. Except I think of all the different emotions, this is one of the easiest ones to notice because it's only on one side of the face. You don't know what side of the face it's going to be on, but it's only on that one side. Number 6 is when they project their shame onto the target. So you might notice when they were blame shifting or rationalizing or raging or just throwing something at you like that, you might notice that flash of a smirk come across their face. They obviously get pleasure out of that. Number 7 is pretty much when they're doing any or all of the covert aggressive tactics, which by the way are in George Simon's book, In Sheep's Clothing. He defines them all. It's a fantastic book. But pretty much when they're doing any of those tactics, they have the opportunity to show that smirk because they respect nothing. They respect no one. Nothing is sacred to them. So as they're doing those things, which as Dr. Simon also says, comes from the conscious part of the brain. It's not an unconscious, a subconscious thing that they're doing. They're actually aware of what they're doing as they're manipulating you. So you might see that flash go across their face. Like maybe you're not sure what's going on, but you notice that flash. Maybe you're doubting, are they gaslighting you or what are they doing? But if you see that go across their face, that's probably a red flag. And number 8 is when you defer to them. So when they get that satisfaction of they gaslit you, they lied to you, they did whatever, and you believe them and their story and their reality instead of your own, you'll definitely see that smirk come across their face. So deception detection. This is actually harder with psychopaths and sociopaths, more so than anybody else. I'm going to explain why. But being able to read a person's face and see these kinds of things is helpful to notice when someone's deceiving you. It's just a lot harder when they're a psychopath or a sociopath. As per usual, the normal rules of human engagement often don't apply to them. So the first problem is that the psychopath especially is going to have less of that emotional leakage, as they call it, that expression on their face, because the psychopath often has a flat affect, meaning emotionless. There's a fantastic new Netflix series out called You, and the main character is a psychopath. And so you'll see, like most of the time, there's nothing on his face. like very little emotional expression. But what you'll notice with the psychopath is that when the mask is on, they're animated and they have all this emotion, but when the mask is off, they are just flat affect, emotionless. So when they're trying to be charming and they're trying to read and reflect social cues that normal people have, you'll see their face all lit up. But you'll also notice a staggering show of a lack of facial expressions. And this is also a big red flag. I think when you're meeting people, I mean, by the time we're in our 30s, our 40s and beyond, like people generally have like worry lines up here, maybe some anger lines, like worry even down the center. You'll see expressions on people's faces. And what you'll notice with the cluster Bs and with the psychopaths is that there's often nothing going on over here in their face. That could be a real big red flag. Like what I notice most victims and survivors is we have some kind of anger line. Maybe it's on one side or both sides, or one side or both sides, one side or either side or both sides. Oh my goodness, I can't talk today. So you're going to notice lines like that on people's faces, but on the psychopaths, you're going to notice like almost a totally flat forehead. And this is unphotoshopped, of course. The second problem with deception detection with psychopaths and sociopaths and whatnot is that a lot of them know how to fake it. The worst ones are the ones who have training in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, or these facial expressions or body language and things like that, because they know what people are looking for, so they'll try to fake it. I had a sociopath business partner in Peru several years ago, and he studied NLP. He had to have known about the eye smile. So you know that a genuine smile, when someone's smiling genuinely, your eyes smile too. Right? So you get those little wrinkles, they call them crow's feet or something, but you get those little wrinkles under the eyes. It means someone's happy. When you see wrinkles there, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. It means they're happy, they smile a lot. But what he knew is that he had to try to make his face look together. But he was bad at it, unfortunately for him. So when someone would say something and he was, trying to smile, he would go, it was like an over exaggeration to try to smile his eyes so that it would match like the smile on his face. But some of them are much better than that. Like he happened to not be very good at that because he couldn't manage his emotions very well, and he couldn't fake it very well, but some of them can. So beware of that. They can fake concern. You might notice them like putting on this really fake concern, face. I'm not even sure. Maybe they'll scrunch their face up or something as you're telling them a story, but maybe they're just extracting information that they're going to use against you for gossip, for smear campaigns, etc. Maybe they're just getting off on knowing that you're suffering. And then also you'll notice that they can do like a fake happiness when you're doing good. Like when you tell them that you're doing good, it's like, oh, I'm so happy for you. But it's so fake. Some of them, again, are better than others. Some of them you can even hear. Like if you're on the phone and you're not on FaceTime or anything, you can't see their face. Sometimes you can even hear the fake happiness behind them. But in terms of the facial expressions, some of them can fake that better than others. Third problem with these characters and deception detection is that they often believe their lies. That was something Dr. Todd Grande said when I interviewed him on the psychopaths and sociopaths, and he said, somebody had asked, do they actually believe all these lies that they say? And he said, yeah, they probably do. So when they really believe it, their body is going to be in alignment with their emotions because they truly believe they're the victim. And the fourth problem with the psychopaths, and especially, but even narcissists and sociopaths, is that their charm and that character, that personality that they can put out could be really deceiving. It could be really confusing to you. Could distract you from noticing those little signs of incongruency between their body language and what they're saying. So now I just want to close with 3 brief little tips for you on this topic. If you're online dating and you see that expression on maybe the sideways smile, they're looking all cocky, or they got one of those things going on, do not talk to that person. hey, maybe they're not a manipulator, but chances are, if that's their main photo, like they're leading with that, that's probably a common expression for them. It probably means that they see themselves as superior and other people as inferior. Again, not every person who has this flash across their face is evil or manipulative or feels they're superior to other people. That could come because they have a genuine disdain for someone who violated them, right? But when you're seeing them smile like that in those profile photos, that's generally not a good sign. You can notice that on social media too. Maybe you're not even online dating, but you're checking somebody out, you know, that you're starting to get to know, a friend or otherwise. Look on their social media, like how many of their selfies or other photos are showing that expression on their face. You know, if most of their selfies are like, not a good sign. Second tip is to become a lot more aware of people's faces when they're talking to you. So you want to tune into how you feel in that situation and then later. But when you're in the moment, be especially observant of their faces. Notice the emotions that they're conveying to you or the lack of them. And finally, if you have something important to say to someone, an important conversation, you really want to know how they feel, say it face to face. Don't write it, don't text it. Don't talk on the phone without seeing their face. Say it face to face. You could really see their face and know what their reaction and their response is to what you're saying. So that's the topic I have for you today. I hope that was helpful. If you got any insights out of this, please leave those in the comments. If you had any more flashbacks or ideas of when you've seen that smirk on a manipulator's face, add those to the comments too, because that could be really helpful for other people. I'm sending you all a big hug.